This is the second video for problem set number 6A, which is the rotor assembly. In the first video, I showed you how to create the rotor itself. Now, for this second video, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to create the rotor assembly, which once you have the rotor on your screen, you're going to attach the bushings, the 4 bushings. Now, one thing I want to point out is there are 4 bushings and they're all unique. So they do need to go in the right place. From the front view, which we should replicate in our screen, the large bushing that is a bronze material goes in the middle. And then there is one that goes in, this is called the large front bushing, and this is called the small front bushing. And then there's a small back bushing and a large back bushing. So just make sure that you put those in the right place. You're going to have problems later when we put the assemblies together. Now that said, you have access to all these. The rotor is what you created, and then you should have access to the bushings. Although, if you were so inclined, you could make these relatively easily. They're very simple geometry. To bring the bushings into our file, what we want to do is first organize everything into a folder. Now, is this absolutely necessary? No, it's not. But is it good practice? Absolutely. The more organized you are when it comes to assemblies, the much better everything is going to work. Because when you do a pack and go to ship these, to export these, if there's something missing, then the person you're trying to send it to, it's not going to be complete. There's going to be issues. So avoid that by being very, very detailed and organized. So I have a project folder with problem set 6, and then I have a dedicated folder for just this assembly, and that should be what we do going forward with assemblies. All right, so there's 2 ways that I can import, or 2 ways I'm aware of. There might be more. 2 ways to bring in the bushings. I can right click and click insert into design, which I'm going to do with the large back bushing. And as you can see, it kind of pops in and probably puts it right on the origin, but I'm going to stick it back here so that I can do the joint properly. Now I have some choices, and this is totally user choice. I can do one at a time, bring it in, join it to my join it together to create the assembly, or I can just bring them all in, kind of put them out in space and then do one by one. It really doesn't matter. The only thing you need to do is make sure you get the right bushing in the right place. So that one I right clicked and I inserted. This one I'm just going to drag in. And what you will notice is that both methods work. What I like to do is kind of set things out, orient them in the general direction they're supposed to go, and then I can come in and do my joints. Okay, so that's the front. Where's the next back one? Is over here. And I want this guy to go up here. And then I want the front one. Oops, double clicked it. So let me go back to my rotor. And instead of double clicking, which will open it, just drag it in. Okay, so that's going to go up here, and turn this guy around, and then go up. Okay, so I took the choice of bringing everything in, and now I'm going to joint it. So if I go to the assembly toolbar, there is an option here that says joint. That's what you want to use. Now there's 2 tabs here, position and motion. Position is how we get things to connect in the right place. Motion is how we allow some movement, or in the case of a rigid joint, no movement between the objects that we are connecting. Now, right now, these bushings are all essentially rigid joints, but down the road, we will be using some of these other motion joints. So it's something you need to be aware of where to find it. So for our position, we have some options here. There are modes in how to connect things. I'm going to use the simple right now, where essentially the computer does most of the work. So for component number 1, I'm going to say is this guy. This is the face that is going to be touching this face on the wheel or the rotor. And the way that the joints work here is that the little origin button that you see, which I can't move my cursor to it, but the little mini origin that pops up, that's where the origin on this side of component number 1 is going to attach. So wherever that ends up, it's going to be essentially, it's going to become the same point, or it's going to be coincident. So it's really important that you get that origin in the right spot. And as you can see, the origin's met and the faces are touching, which is perfect. And I don't want to do any offsets, any of these offsets, which, essentially I could move this around to achieve the right fit, but the right fit was achieved perfectly the first time. So I don't want to add or move it at all. And you can always fly around and inspect. And I can see that this little gap between these two components is actually the same on both sides. So that's how I know that it's perfect. So that's what I want. Now click OK. Now I can do the same thing to the front side of this other bushing. So joint, component 1, select. I think it's already selected this guy. Let's see here. All right, computer's a little frozen. It happens. Okay, joint. Here we go. This guy. And keep in mind where that origin is. Then for component 2, it's going to be here. Now if I click right on the edge of this circle, it puts that origin in the perfect place. And that looks absolutely perfect. So essentially, rigid joints are very simple. You just have to get them oriented right, and there's no motion to worry about. But we will get to motion in future projects. One thing I do want to point out is the flip button. Sometimes the computer will put things in the right place, but the faces are facing the wrong direction. A flip is a real easy way to correct that. Okay, so I have the 2 front joints. You would just repeat the same process with the joints on the back. Very simple. Just take your time in where you're clicking and understanding that these little mini origins are going to essentially become coincident or line up with each other. If you do that, it all does what it's supposed to do, or if you understand that, I should say. Okay. One more. I can come down here to component 2, click select, and there we go. All right. As you can see here, it's showing the rigid joints. This in the very similar way that it shows constraints in our sketches. And I can see that the objects are here. And if I open these up, there's information on each of these objects. And actually I can open these up as well, because now it's all part of the same file as with any assembly. So make sure that you do save this, and I would do a save as rotor assembly. Don't just save it as the rotor, so that you are more organized when you need to pull that file out and export it. All right, so that's how you create an assembly from 5 parts, and that is assembly 6A with more to come.